Lesson 15 in Module 3 is on graphing solutions inequalities. So we're going to take what we've been doing for the last few lessons in solving inequalities. We're still going to do that. But then because it is not just one number for an answer, it's a set of numbers, we're going to graph them so we can get a visual of what it looks like. So let's take a look at this first example. Two identical cars need to fit into a small garage. The opening is 23 feet 6 inches wide, and there must be at least 3 feet 6 inches of clearance between the cars and between the edge of the garage. How wide can the cars be? Let's be honest, that's really wordy, and you've got feet and you've got inches going on. So my advice is to draw a picture. And this really bad picture of a garage, okay? We know that it says the opening, so we're just going to kind of pretend that it goes from here to here, right? Is 23 feet 6 inches. A little hint here, right? How many inches are in a foot? 12. So if we have 6 inches out of 12 inches, okay, that's really saying like 23 and 6/12 inches, which is, or I'm sorry, feet, which is 23 and a half feet, or 23.5. All right, okay. Now, I know you might not be able to see that right away. That's not what our focus is, okay? But I'm going to make this easier by writing this as 23.5 feet. Okay, from here to here, okay? And then I know I need to fit 2 cars in here. One, told you this is a really bad sketch, okay? And there must be 3 feet and 6 inches. Well, that's 6/12 of a foot. Guess what? That's going to be 3.5 feet again. Okay, so I need to know that this needs to be 3.5 here, and 3.5 here, and 3.5 here. Okay, here's a car, here's a car. How wide can the cars be? All right, well, we need to kind of add all this distance up, right? 3.5 plus c plus 3.5 plus c plus 3.5. And that's going to give us the total distance. All right, that is 1c plus 3.5 plus 1c plus 3.5. Now, our total is 23 and a half feet. We cannot go less than that. I'm sorry, we cannot go greater than that. There's just no room. So it's going to be less than. Now, could it be exactly equal to it? Yeah, we're going to say that it could be. Okay? So now if we gather up our like terms, 3.5 plus 3.5 plus 3.5, that's 10.5. And then we have 1c and 2c's. 1c, 1c is 2c's. And so we have 10.5 plus 2c is less than or equal to 23.5. Okay, so don't stress too much about that. This one is a little different than the ones we've been working on, but hopefully you can see where I'm getting the numbers from. Now let's solve this. What are we solving for? We're solving for the only thing we don't know what it is, c. It's a value, we just don't know what it is. And so we do order of operations backwards. And we get rid of whatever's being added to, added on, or subtracted from, or whatever. So I'm going to get rid of this 10.5. I'm going to combine it with a negative 10.5, or I'm going to subtract, because these two are going to add to 0, or subtract to 0. Whatever I do to one side of the inequality, I have to do to the other. I bring down my 2c is less than or equal to, and then I subtract, or 23.5 plus a negative 10.5. And that's just 13. Now this is 3 times c, so we undo multiplying with dividing. I am going to divide both sides by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1c, 13 divided by 2 is 6.5. We'll just leave it as a decimal for now. The last thing I asked myself, the only thing that is different between solving equations and inequalities is this part here. Did I multiply or divide by a negative number? Okay? I'm not asking if I multiplied or if I divided. Did I do either of those things by a negative number? And I didn't. I actually divided by a positive number. So, therefore, my inequality is preserved and it stays the same direction. So I get the car length has to be less than or equal to 6.5 feet. That's what we've been working by. And actually, we could, notice here too, that I don't just write 6.5, okay, because it's actually, the answers are less than or equal to 6.5. We've been working on this thing too, right? Typing out our answer here. Not typing out, but per se, but interpreting it. The cars, and I'll get that out of the way here in a second. I don't know why it's, okay. The cars need to be 6.5 feet or 6.5 feet or less. Okay, the new thing that we're doing right now, though, is we're going to graph our solution so we can see a visual of what we need. So you've done this before. Don't stress about that, okay? We draw a line. And it's 6.5, so I need to include some numbers on either side of 6.5. So let's say I just put, here's 5, here's 6, here's 7, here's 8. Okay, now we find 6.5 in the line, and that's going to be halfway between 6 and 7. Here's 6.5. Now, if you remember, 3 things we do. The first thing to do is we put a circle on the number, 6.5. So we're going to put a circle here. Okay. Then, is it an open circle or closed circle? Now remember, if it can be equal to it, then we fill it in. I think if it can't be equal to it, it's like a bubble that we can never get that close. So if it can be equal to it, there's a line underneath it, we fill it in. And then our third thing is we have to draw an arrow in the direction that represents values. Now, all of our values are less than 6.5. Which side of the circle represents the values less than 6.5? To the left, right? So I am going to draw an arrow from the top of the circle that way. This was a different problem, I know, but once we get the inequality, I hope you see it's what we've been doing in our solving. Now we're just taking it to the next step. Now we're graphing our solutions. Let's look at one more example. A local car dealership is trying to sell all of the cars on the lot. Currently, there are 525 cars on the lot. The general manager estimates they will sell 50 cars per week. Estimate how many weeks it'll take for the numbers on the lot to be less than 75. Okay? And they want us to use W for weeks. Okay? And then I'm going to say W means the end of week 1. Okay, so let's write inequality. We have 525 cars, and we're selling 50 cars per week. So I'm going to say 50W, right? 50 times the number of weeks go by. And I'm going to put a minus sign in here. Because we're not adding on additional cars, we're subtracting 50 per week. Now I want to know when that is going to be less than 75. Okay? So there's my inequality. Let's solve it. What am I solving for? I'm solving for W right here. Okay? So I have to remember, if I don't do keep, change, and make this into plus negative, that this is actually minus 50W is negative 50W. So I need to get rid of this 525. I'm going to combine it with a negative 525. Whatever I do to one side, I do to the other. And again, double check to make sure they go to 0. Make sure that you bring down this minus 50W, which is a negative 50W. And which makes it okay if we get a negative 450 here. Okay. Now we've solved for the W term. Now we've solved for W. This is multiplying. We undo that by dividing. So I'm going to divide both sides by a negative 50. Negative 50 divided by negative 50 is 1W. Negative 450 divided by negative 50. Negative divided by negative is positive. 450 divided by 50 is 9. The last thing I ask myself is, did I multiply or divide by a negative number? The answer is yes. I divided by a negative 50. Okay, since this is negative right here, then we're going to reverse the inequality. Okay, so remember, the question asks, estimate how many weeks will it take for the number of the cars to be less than 75? It is going to be greater than 9 weeks. Okay, and our answer, remember, has to have that W is greater than 9. It can't just be 9. So now, if we want to interpret the situation, we would say after, or something like this anyway, 9 weeks, there will be less than 75 cars on the lot. But our new part today is graphing, okay? So that one hopefully is a little similar, more similar to what we've been doing. Let's graph. Okay, so here's my line. Got to have some numbers around 9, so maybe I say, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, okay? Now, once we have our number line, okay, and you notice I'm just putting a few on each side, it's fine. I take my 9 here, and I'm going to put a circle on the 9. Step 1. Step 2, is it an open or a closed circle? Well, look at this. W is greater than 9. That means it can never touch 9. There needs to be a bubble around the 9 because it cannot be equal to 9. Therefore, it's an open circle. And then step 3 is that we need to talk about all the values that are greater than 9. So which side of our bubble here are greater than 9? To the right. So I'm going to draw an arrow to the right. Okay? We've been working on solving inequalities. Okay? We've actually kind of been working what our answers mean. And in the past, we've graphed inequalities. So really not a lot is new with this lesson, but we're just starting to put everything together.